So my name's Heather Whiteman. I really want to talk about, probably one of the taglines that I like to use the most, which is don't be creepy. So we're all here talking about people analytics, future of work, and where things go, and how can we talk about it in a way that we can actually use data for good. So my background, I am a lecturer with UC Berkeley. I teach people analytics in the Haas School of Business as well as Extension. And most recently, I was with GE leading various teams for our GE digital business in these areas. And I'm having a lot of fun right now as I've stepped out of the practitioner role, just spending time researching and really digging into what is going on in the world of people analytics, and especially around my own passion. So just a little bit about me that'll make the next part of the session make sense. I only ended up in people analytics because I found my way into liking the idea of research and data, and then discovering something in the field of affirmative action, equal employment, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world that I could work on statistics that might actually make the world a more fair and opportunistically even place to be. And that was sort of how I first ended up in the area. Then I ended up going and taking a job in another place, and then another place, and then before I know it, I'm in this last role at GE. And now that I've had the opportunity to sort of step back and do more teaching, I've really gotten back into the passion area around how do we do good with data and with people. Emma is a lady that I actually made up this last year at PAFOW in Philadelphia. Any chance anyone was there and saw that? No? Okay, so Emma will be new to you. I'd like you to meet Emma. So Emma is, well, first and foremost, she's a royalty-free stock photo. So no copyright infringements there. But she's a story of a very realistic situation that we might have, and I want to tell you her story. So Emma is graduating from university. She has gone and gotten a computer science degree, and she is, feeling really proud, but also really anxious about where she's going to go in the future. And she, is pretty tech savvy. And she goes online and she enters in some forms to try to find a good job fit for her. She fills out some algorithms, she fills out some tests, she puts in her resume, her bio, her skills into a fit predictor. And this algorithm kicks back out some potential jobs that would be a really good fit for her. And it says, hey, I think you should apply to these 3 jobs. So she clicks into some of them, and she's like, wow, there's one that seems like a really good fit. So she goes straight to that page, and she applies. And the apply process has her do an interview, but she doesn't actually go anywhere to interview. She's sent a list of interview questions and a link to record her video responses to a set of interviews. She's also given a test on her coding skills, and it's an adaptive test that as she gets harder questions right, they get harder and harder. As she gets ones wrong, they get easier. And they get a really good score on her. All of this data goes into a system. And Emma's video recording is analyzed by facial recognition software and is looking for her traits and what her personality senses might be. Also, text analytics is going into the words that are coming out as she's doing these interviews. She's also got a calculated score on all of her technical skills from what she's sent in there. And all this data floats up into the sky and gets sent to the company that she's applied for. The company actually really likes what they saw in her interview and assessment and sends her a kit in the mail. They've decided that it's a little more cost-effective to actually mail you a virtual reality headset fit onto your smartphone than it is to fly you across the country for some kind of interview and introduction. So she gets this VR headset, and she gets to actually look around at what her new workplace might look like. She even sees her colleagues, and they're waving at her from the break room. She sees the actual product that she'd be writing code for and where it goes into. And as she's going through all of this preview stuff, she's decided that, wow, based on what I've seen of this company, I'd like to work here. The company's data set has already said that her web video interview and her assessment is quality. And she actually receives an offer without having been to any location, without having necessarily interacted with a human for any of the selection decision criteria. Because they have all this data on her, they already have a personality profile, they already have a skills profile on her. They match her up with a buddy and a mentor. So when she starts on her first day, she already has someone who is a personality fit for who should be her buddy around the office, and a mentor to help her grow her skills. She's also given her company computer and badge and phone, pretty standard issue stuff, except that her badge is actually filled with sensors, and her badge tracks where she goes around the office. It doesn't just let her into the door. It knows every location that she's in. It is reading off of other people's badges. It knows who she interacts with. It knows the tone and the pitch of her voice. It knows if she's excited, if she's agitated, and how those interactions are happening. And her laptop and computer actually come with some really advanced productivity software. It's tracking her code quality as she's putting it in. It's checking her commits. It knows how many other people are liking her code quality, how many bugs she has, how much time she spends writing new code or refactoring old code, and it's giving her regular scores on her productivity, how she's doing, and the different pieces. In fact, it knows so much about how she's doing her work that it actually gives her recommendations. It says, hey, it looks like you have an issue with this one particular approach to the way that you're always writing your code. We think you should take this course because that will solve your most common, bug and problem along the way. And she'll be given additional learning based on her assessments and fit as she goes. Now, because we have all of this data, there's a point at which Emma's work numbers start to change. She's still coming to the office. We know that because she's badging in and badging out. But her interactions with other people have kind of changed in frequency. Her movement patterns around the office seem to change. She's at her desk a lot more. But we know from her productivity tracking software that she's not actually putting out more work lately. Something's going on. This is maybe we're showing absenteeism, or something's happening where Emma's at work, but she is not the Emma that she used to be. And we can see this just shown to us plainly in the data trends. So this is the point where the system says, uh-oh, something's going on with Emma. We think that maybe this just isn't the right job for her. Maybe there's another one. So a job fit algorithm can be used again to identify, hey, Emma, I know you got a computer science degree, and I know you thought you wanted to be a software engineer, but you're actually a better match fit for product management. Have you ever thought about it? Maybe you should consider a switch over to this role. That might help with your engagement, productivity, and really set you up to start this circle back again and really think about your career and where it's going. Okay, so how many people feel like this Emma story is a story for the future? Okay, how many of you have realized while I'm talking that every single thing I said is possible today and each piece of it is happening somewhere? Yeah. I have not seen Emma's story carry all the way through. I haven't seen them put together, but every one of these things is happening today. But now, the mic situation is going to mean that I think we'll do a call out and I'll repeat. But the part that I really wanted to get to here is I actually want to understand from you, how do you feel about Emma's story? Do you want to be Emma? Do you want to be part of Emma's work world? Just anyone, and shout out, and I'll try to repeat since it'd be too hard to run mics around. How does Emma make you feel?
I guess I have a reaction.
Yeah.
I think there's a tremendous amount of pressure from an employee experience standpoint for all of us to close the gap between what our customers receive from customer experience and employee experience. Mm-hmm. I don't think anything you've outlined here is wildly different than what we experience every day on an Amazon or Google or those digital experiences. This happens every day. Our employees, I think, are going to expect this. I think it's a fine line around kind of how we use data and private data and health data. This, I would be surprised if employees look at this anything other than favorably. There'll be some vocal minority that reacts around privacy, but I think employees, they don't know that they should get this. Once they get it, I have to believe that they'll react positively to be able to get this information that improves their career, improves their engagement, and improves their employee experience.
Yeah, so just repeating it for the mic, because I'm wearing a lot of battery packs. If people haven't noticed this, there's a mic for the web as well, or the video. The comment was around how this really is mirroring the consumer expectations and consumer experiences that we're all seeing today. You were going to add?
Well, do we know that Emma's happy?
Yeah. The question is, do we know if Emma's happy? I don't know.
Do we know that she got put into a career path that has as much earning potential as where she thought she wanted to go?
Yeah, the other comment is this new career path, is that actually beneficial to Emma, whether that be financially or otherwise? Yeah, Ed.
You know what I'm going to say. It makes the unseen, the unheard, it makes it visible, right? It takes all those intangible factors and turns it into a tangible factor that people can take action on.
Yeah. Who felt, oh, yeah, Misa.
Also, does Emma have a choice to opt out?
Yeah. Misael just asked, does Emma have a choice to opt out? Love that you just lobbed that one up there, because I will turn the question around. Even if Emma had an opt-in at the beginning, if Emma has student loan debts that are about to start piling up on her, she is desperate to maybe move out of an apartment with a horrible significant other that she's like, oh my gosh, I just need to get out. Does she still have an opt-out? Does it feel like an opt-out if you need a job? There is a difference between whether or not you have an opt-out button and whether or not you feel that you have an opt-out. Yeah. Did anyone feel excited and like this was a promising future? It's okay if you did. I'm just curious. There's a little bit. There's a couple. There's some people only on this side. Nobody over there seemed to be excited. This is the excited side. This is the scared side. Well, you know, I think there is a lot of positive possibility in these kind of future worlds. I mean, if we think about, especially a new college grad, sometimes they don't know what possibilities, what opportunities, what pieces are out there. An algorithm may be one of the best ways to help them find opportunities when they don't yet have a network and resources to help them get there. You know, finding job fit is something, how many has this story that they say, I didn't end up in my job on purpose? How many of you are like, I had a weird different career and I didn't really know I'd be in this job when I started? Yeah. What if you had something that was helping you identify your strengths, your passions, and your desires to help you find that a little bit quicker or different along the way? There are a lot of different pieces of this story that can be positive and empowering and give opportunities to people who may not have the same networks and resources, and so it can be a very opening opportunity. But there is a very thin line between when these are opportunities for Emma and when we have put Emma into a purely optimization, tracking her every minute, making sure her output is where we expect it to be. If it's not good enough, we're going to put her into a different role and check her output there. And if it's not good enough, we will keep tracking and keep going. When is it personalization for her development, growth, and carrying along? And when have we reduced Emma to something a little less than an individual? Yeah, MJ.
I think also the one thing that was striking my attention was in the part about, you know, the algorithm monitoring her every stroke of code is where's job control in there, right? So
Yeah.
get back to the initial speak feels like, because then there you have the pressure, maybe I should do things always this way, where's creativity, where's innovation? Yeah, and then also the part about, you know, when the numbers start going in a different direction than expected, is it that the only reaction is let's find a new career? What are other options for when the numbers start going? So,
Yeah, when something is tracking your every movement, do you still have control? And even if you had control over which movement, do you feel like you have control when someone's tracking? And then, you know, where does creativity and innovation fall when you're in that kind of environment? And then what was your second point?
about, you know, when her numbers start going
Yeah.
down, the proposal was to change careers.
Yeah.
Some other avenue that's not necessarily
Yeah, this assumes that Emma exists only in her work environment. How do we not know that she didn't get sick, that something didn't come up with her family, that she didn't have an issue that outside of work, that quite frankly, she just needed a moment to get, and she still is engaged and wants to be part of this role, and people go through natural cycles that algorithms won't understand or catch. And so, again, just taking that human piece out of it when we go through this. Okay, so hopefully everyone's sufficiently a little depressed. Don't worry, we'll come back up. But you know, one of my favorite quotes, I don't think I do a lecture or a presentation or anything without quoting my Deming friend here. Just because you can measure everything doesn't mean you should. And that's really kind of the thought here. I think there is a goal, but we should never forget kind of at what level we need to stop working towards it. And feeding off of that, these are my personal people data principles. And the first one being people data for good. You heard Al say that. That's actually the tagline for this conference. That's why I love coming to the PAFOW events, is it fits so well with just something that I hold to be a necessary piece of what we do, is using people data for good. The people data is private data. People data is not the same as other data. And as we just talked about with Emma, don't be creepy. So people data for good. I want to call out two really big distinctions. Right now, there is actually a lot of talk, and especially in the Emma story, around how do we avoid bias and harm in the data that's built out? How do we ensure that these algorithms, these fit predictions, these connections don't disadvantage individuals? How can we trust data that's maybe built off of bad historical biases and not be worried that we might accidentally place them into our systems and at scale? But then there's a second, less talked about area, and in fact, this is the area that I'm hoping that at the end of this talk, you all feel inspired to maybe do a bit more on or be driven around, which is how can we use people data to actually detect and remove bias? So not just how do we not be creepy and how do we avoid doing bad, how can we do good with it? So I talked about when I started out in my career, my goal was to use analytics to make employment opportunities more fair. And as we have gotten more advanced as a people analytics community and society, we are starting to get more tools, technology, access to data that is giving us a unique opportunity to go further into this area, and is something that I think and I hope that we will all start to drive and push a bit further. We are seeing some nice movement recently around treating people data like private data. So I think it's a pretty nerdy thing, but how many people join me in like, you're super excited about GDPR? Oh, come on, somebody. Yeah, even the gentleman behind the camera is excited about GDPR. Okay, like most people just know GDPR as the reason why they got all these annoying emails re-explaining the terms of agreement for like that newsletter you forgot you signed up for 6 years ago. But it really was a monumental kind of movement and moment in the recognition of people data being private. Just this month, California launched the California Consumer Privacy Act, which you're like, oh, but it's consumers. No, it actually qualifies employees as individuals within that. It does only apply to California right now, but California tends to be a starter of laws like this, and it is treating all forms of people data and employee data as private, protected, and that they must be informed and give consent in using it. So if you have employees in California, heads up, this already went into effect. If you don't have employees in California but elsewhere in the US, heads up, it's coming to you soon. You might as well start figuring out how to do it now so that you're not freaking out when it happens. But these are, in my opinion, the real sign that we are finally ready to do people data for good. We are taking it seriously, because how many of you have been doing some form of people analytics for more than a year? Okay, these came out only within like the last year or so. Like, doesn't that kind of scare you a little? Like, really? We didn't have that before? Sure, there are ethics charters and governance committees, and those are great, and we need more of them, but there's more coming along. Yeah.
Back to your other side about people data for good and avoiding bias and harm. Do you see people understanding and incorporating the EEOC's uniform guidelines on employee selection tools?
Yeah.
Do you think that's effective to address the harm and bias issue?
Yeah, the question, again, just repeating for the mic, the question was about on avoiding bias and harm. Do we see things like the EEOC, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, Council, some see, Commission, and then the uniform guidelines, which explain sort of how to assess that. Those are US only, and they actually only apply to government regulated and certain publicly traded, so they are awesome and they work, but ideally we'd get to some larger stage, but yeah.
Private employers.
Yeah, of a certain size, yeah. But I do think that they're a little shallow in that they really came about in like the 70s or something. So I actually think of those sometimes in Title VII where we've got a lot of the backing for this. If you're in the US anyway, it's been like 50 years since we had major laws around this. Isn't it time for some more? And going there. So I think those are good, but they're older, they're limited, and that. But hopefully we get more than just that in the future. Was anyone in my workshop yesterday? Yeah, okay, a few of you. Somebody, what is this? Look, don't just read the title. All right, I'll let you off the hook. Okay, this is an image of the approximate number of human biases that we all have. There is something in the ballpark of 200 identified, defined, researched human biases that are part of the way that we interpret and then talk about our world. So there's all sorts of different things that feed into here, like our confirmation biases, where we really only see and hear what we already thought anyway, where we only select data that we choose to look at. There are, anchoring biases, where once you've been exposed to one number, you really can't get your head off of it. This is how marketing people sell you stuff at more money than you would have originally thought. But we are just pre-programmed to not see the world as it really is. And one of the big biases that we have is we don't always even know about our biases. And so we are not aware that we make decisions through all of these filters all the time. And we also can't help but accidentally put these biases into the way that we approach and think about people data. So when you hear about some of the stories of AI and bias, we've seen a lot where facial recognition software is particularly bad at picking up African-American female faces. And that's because those who had coded for it weren't biased against that group of people. It didn't occur to them to then check for those kind of things as they're putting them in. But these are the kind of things that are going to be naturally present, whether it's a human or whether it's your analytics and coming out. And we are starting to see some good uses of people, data, and activity around this for good. They're not where they need to be at all yet, but one good example, does anyone know the app Nextdoor? Some people. So it's just a social community site. You kind of see of people who live in your neighborhood, maybe a couple blocks away, on different streets. And mostly it's like, hey, my dog got loose, has anybody seen it? Or there's a yard sale this weekend. But actually one of the more common ones is, hey, there's a creepy person in our neighborhood, y'all watch out. Like that is probably the most common thing that pops up on Nextdoor. And Nextdoor received a lot of backlash because they were seeing that it was being used really strongly for racial profiling. They were seeing that posts about activities in the neighborhood were just listing someone's maybe gender and race, saying suspicious person in the neighborhood, that's it. And it created this backlash, but And while that's horrible, Nextdoor started then working on, okay, but how could we use this data to actually turn it around? And they started building in their algorithms to look for key text patterns and analytics. And they started identifying when there was racial bias within the postings and actually built into their app how to recorrect your post. So somebody would try to post something like that and a little flag would go off and it'd say, sorry, we noticed that there's some profiling in here. It'd be better if you put any personal characteristic descriptions into the section about what the person looked like. By the way, did you know that law enforcement states that it's more important to list the clothing that someone is wearing, any identifying marks like tattoos or scars? Here are the things that you should list. And they would actually give feedback back and back and back to their posters to remove that racial profiling aspect of it. And what I found really remarkable of that was, one, using the data and the system to address a problem that was identified in there. But two, that it was also serving as almost in a way, a really polite educational opportunity. I don't know about you guys, but I would love my neighbors to be less sucky. And if it takes them having to fill out this little algorithm to be like, hey, check your biases, that to me is powerful and amazing. And then if you think about that example for catching people's biases that they might not even know that they have, how many ways could we think of potentially doing that when we think about making our workplaces and our employees able to create more inclusive, more pleasant places to be and to be around? So let's play a game, the more fair game. So let's just say that you are looking to fill a job and you have the lucky fortune of tons of people applied to your job. Great. So you need a smaller set of people because you can't possibly talk to like all 100 people. So would you rather have a subset selected for you as potential successful candidates that were selected for you by an algorithm or by a person? Now, to give just a little bit, we don't know everything about the algorithm of the person, but the algorithm has been trained on past successful data. It knows who in the past, out of all types of applicants, have successfully made it through the interview process and been hired, and it's using that information. And it does exclude any kind of identifiers that might talk about someone's personal characteristics. It even takes off names and addresses because sometimes those can hint at things, and then it feeds it on in. Now, the human is a recruiting professional who's been doing this for years. They're actually really good at their job, and they know everything about your department and their culture. So which one would you rather use? Who is on the team with the algorithm? Okay, why? Just shout out reasons. Cost? Yeah, you can go faster. What else?
The size of the data set.
Size of the data set?
I've got to qualify that. I would want to know what's in the algorithm first.
Okay, you'd want to know what's in the algorithm, but so maybe the fact that you could know what's inside the algorithm and the size. Who else had anything different?
I think the algorithm has some biases because the historical data that it could have
Yeah.
or contain any biases.
So are you on Team Human? Okay, so you're on Team Human because the algorithm could have some biases. Who else is on Team Human? Okay, why?
It goes to that. If you're mostly focused on who have been successful hires in the past, it's really tying you to who you've hired.
Yeah. Back there, yeah.
Just codifies best practices.
But I'm sorry?
It just codifies best practices.
It codifies the best practices. Yeah.
Past practices.
I'm sorry, I can't. Past practices. Yes, it does just codify it. Okay, so there's no right answer. It's just a game. The truth is, they're probably both biased. The truth is, they're actually probably kind of a little bit the same thing because this person's years of experience probably created some of these past hires, which the algorithm then used to determine who would be the next best predicted algorithm. So they feed along. There's sort of no right answer. It's where you want to go with it. I will tell you that some of my thoughts are, I like the fact that I could publish, study, and have other people give me feedback and make this better and better and better. And it is very hard to do that on every single individual recruiter that you have. So I do personally lean a little more algorithm, not because algorithms today are good, but we have a transparency into algorithms that we can assess. So I know we're right at time, and I think that's because they're trying to get us back on track. But I wanted to kind of leave you with this metaphor. I love people analytics. I've been doing it for a really long time. I think it's amazing, but it scares me and I'm worried about it. Not because it's bad and not because it'll necessarily do bad, but if we think about cars, okay, or any form of transportation, plane, train, automobile, pick it. They're amazing. I love travel, but they're actually scary if you think about it. If you took a car and you did not have it built by an engineer who really understood metal properties and physics and safety, and you put it out there without any roads, without any laws, without any enforcement, without ways to build infrastructure about how it should flow, how dangerous would a car be in the 1800s just going all around, like running into horses and off whatever? It is a dangerous, dangerous thought. I think we're at that stage with people analytics. We have a beautiful car. We have forgotten about building all the infrastructure, all the laws, all the rules, all the connection pieces. So I want to be in the people analytics car, but I want there to be an infrastructure. I want there to be rules. I want there to be regulations. I want people to be safe. And so if I could sort of leave you with a call to action, it's let's all help to build the airbags. Like, how do we protect people? Where are the seatbelts? Where are the infrastructure? Where's the pieces? I'd love to hear if you have any stories of where people are actually doing this for good. We have too many stories right now of people analytics harming, but there are stories of people analytics for good. I'd love to hear those. I already see people coming in for the next one. Where's my, do we just need to wrap or? Okay, so I will be around if you want to connect. We are switching around. There's another session going on in this room as well as next door. But yeah, I'd love to keep the conversation going, so please talk, and it was nice to see you all. Thanks.